Hey, how's it going? I'm just doing a bit of a rant today because I see so much that's just ridiculous, lying, nonsense, trying to change anyone's mind on anything, just trying to show that there are lies out there, intentional or not, and they shouldn't be there. We should be able to deal with lying. I think if we really started looking at people and organizations and exposing them for their lying, which is, that's one of the aspects of corruption. These people getting in, becoming politicians, and then lying about it. They say one thing while they're out campaign on the campaign trail, and then they get into office and they will completely flip flop on several of these issues because it's not what they wanted to do. They just said that stuff to get that power. I don't trust the government with very much. There's this video I came across. Dr. Chris Knobbe, Disease of Civilization, Are Seed Oils Excesses the Unifying Mechanism? So what he's saying is that seed oil might be linked to all of these problems. That it's not carbs, it's not fat, it's four things. It's certain type of omega-6 fats, which is found in canola oil, olive oil, and it's like I was wondering about olive oil because I have that. And he talks about the big four group out of it. Vegetable oil, refined wheat, sugars, and trans fats. Was that it? And he's got a chart. He has several of them that shows whenever the introduction of these oils came and how we used more of it, and that stupid damn food pyramid set by the who was it? I forget the name of it.
All right. And we know total energy intake over the next decade went up about 250 calories a day, right? Everybody's probably seen this. And then the next thing that often is said is, as you can see, carbs went up, fat went down, carbs were the problem, right? Not so fast. That composition here is still changing, and that is going to be the crux of what.
Anyways, that food pyramid, and then he looks back through medical records, and he's showing here. Well, here's what people are dying from, and a lot of it's diseases. But then whenever you look at what's going on currently, it's a lot of these diseases are not the big thing, but it's stuff like cancer and heart disease. It's like, well, there was hardly anything with heart disease in the 1800s or prior, or where is it? No, 1912 is whenever the first case was done. So before that, there's like nothing. There's see, Boston, no heart deaths, just 25 sudden deaths, in 1811. 8 worldwide reports of heart attack. 19th century, Sir William whatever reports 6 cases in the previous 21 years. 12.5 deaths due to heart disease. And then all of a sudden, around 20 or 1930, it just goes up like mad. And here in 2010, 1 in 3 due to cardiovascular heart disease. It's like, what? So it's pretty strong. And he talks about how this is all based off of that damn food pyramid and big businesses, and that it's going more and more. So this is it. The big four sugar increases, cottonseed oil, refined wheat, and then trans fats such like with Crisco there. And then it just continues to go up. Processed food uses this stuff like crazy. That before, whenever we were eating wheat, it didn't come out of these big mega factories. And he just goes all over. He just tears it all apart. And I actually just bought, what is it called? Tallow. And what that is, it's pork fat, it's pig fat. And that's what we used to cook with all the time. That's what my grandparents used like crazy, and everything tasted good. And he's trying to say, it's not fats, it's not carbs. There's some fats where it is, but the fat that people usually talk about is like, nope, it's fine. Carbs, fine. And then he goes around the world and he looks at these tribes and he's like, you know what they don't have? They don't have processed food. They don't have processed wheat. They don't have sugar. And all of these guys, they're not fat. Look at their teeth. Like, they don't have toothpaste. Where the hell do they get toothpaste from? How would they even buy it if they had it? They don't have money. And so this is the Maasai tribe of Kenya and Tanzania. And this is the American diet.
Right? Conventional medicine would say this. Cool, don't you know animal fat would kill you? Right? They would say this. You must eat more healthy polyunsaturated oil, like Americans. This is an animal fat diet. This is polyunsaturated fat diet. Animal fat, polyunsaturated fat. How many times should I do this? Okay, let's move down to Tokelau in the South Pacific, kind of midway between Hawaii and Australia. 3 little islands on there, atolls. The Tokelau's were studied 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Very interesting, because here's their diet. Coconut fish, starchy tubers, and fruit. That's it. Very simple. 54 to 62% of their calories come from coconut. Coconut oil, 91 to 94.5% saturated. Their diet is 53% fat, high fat diet, 48% saturated. So while the Maasai hold the honors for the most saturated animal fat in the world at up to 45%, the Tokelau have the most saturated tropical oil fat in the world at 48%. Guess what? 2% of their diet is poop. Now that's total poop. That's omega-6 and omega-3 together. Well, we rarely eat for pork. So here's their diet, 1966 to 68.
Here's a New Guinea.
3% protein, 2.4% fat. Omega-6, there's that number again, 0.6%. Now, what they find about them. Here's what they say in the studies. Population was lean, physically fit, and in good nutritional state. Absence of obesity and hypertension. No diabetes or gout was found. Ischemic heart disease was rare, if not absent. And no macular degeneration. 340 people over age 40 from men. Now, absence of obesity.
Man. Like, how do you argue that? Because it's obvious these tribes people don't have access to this. We do. And where do we get a lot of this omega-6 that they're talking about? Soy oil, which is like in a ton of trash. It's in processed foods like crazy. The more it goes up, the bigger people get. Soybean oil diet. I mean, that crap's in everything. I see it all the time. High fructose, soybean. And then they did it with mice, where they increased it. And this was in a matter of weeks.
My weight versus, for the child part, versus the 19% soy oil, 10% linoleic acid, which is less than Americans are consuming today. That would have been the equivalent of a 294-pound man in 7.5 months. They're eating the same calories, the 4% and the 19% soy oil, the exact same calories. Okay, now this is the same study. I didn't include all the categories. This is so confusing to do quickly. But here's the glucose tolerance test It shows that the soybean oil diet rapidly induces diabetes. That's the top one there. You can see that after an intracranial glucose challenge, look at their glycemia. They're diabetic. And then the next one down is soybean oil plus 25% fructose. They're also diabetic. But the green line is also 40% fat, which was made up of 36% coconut oil and 4% soybean oil and 25% fructose. That did not cause diabetes. And then here, the insulin tolerance test. You can see the very top one is the 19% soybean.
Tell you what, I hate the government. Like, F. Joe Biden, it's like, yes. And every other single one of them, Republicans and Democrats combined. Like, this is what you have to do to get vegetable oil. This seems excessive. Seems like there should be surely something better that we could do. But people keep turning to the government for all this stuff. So here's something else. This is Modern Marvels. Corrosion destroys U.S. infrastructure. Season 14, episode 29, full episode, history.com. I'll have links in the description for these videos. But we're going to listen to, there's this report card kind of thing, and I've known about this for at least 10 years now. They've been doing it for a long time, and we always fail on it.
To chronicle the failing infrastructure in the United States, every 4 years, the American Society of Civil Engineers issues a report card.
The report card on America's infrastructure breaks the country's infrastructure into 15 categories, ranging from bridges, airports, water, wastewater, sewers, and gives each of them a grade, similar to what someone would get in a report card in school from A to F. ASE has given the nation's infrastructure an overall grade of D.
Why? They do this every 4 years. The government knows about this. And we don't do anything about it? Until this stuff collapses?
The primary cause for our failing infrastructure, corrosion.
All of the categories that were rated by ASE for the infrastructure are affected by corrosion. It's lack of maintenance that shortens the life of infrastructure.
Corrosion costs the U.S. economy $300 billion each year. That's 4% of our gross domestic product, nearly half of what we spend on foreign oil, or roughly about.
That's great, because you know this is what we should do. We should wait until it just completely gives, and it kills people. That's awesome. You know what they do in some places? With the Golden Gate Bridge, they take actions ahead of time. Is the Golden Gate Bridge painted from end to end each year? And it's yes. No, painting the Golden Gate Bridge is an ongoing task. So the way that it works is that at the beginning of the year, they start all over at one end, and by the end of the year, they've gone all the way to the other end, and they're done, and then they start it over next year. Because what they do is they have to go in at it with blow torches, and they scrape and they get rid of the old paint, and then they come back and they paint it again. And it's because, as it says here, the paint protects the bridge from the high salt content in the air, which rusts and corrodes the steel components of it. I saw this 15 years ago. It was like on the History Channel on that one too. And they're just blow torching away like crazy on it. And it costs some money though. Right now, the cost of painting the Golden Gate Bridge is $400,000. So it says here it's now, the bridge is painted now and every 2 years hereafter. So I think they were doing it every year. Maybe they've dropped it down to, instead of doing it once a year, once every 2 years. I don't know. It's either every year or every other year. But they do it all the time. And you know what? It's not failing, because they took the money and they spent it on what they're supposed to do. But you have people like AOC Who wants to say, oh, well, we need to be concerned about farting cows? And so I just put AOC farting cows, and you can just take a look at all the nonsense with her, because that was that Green New Deal, just in case if any of you weren't paying attention to politics back then. Because methane's a problem. It's like, and what do you want to do about it? You know, so methane is a colorless odor and highly flammable gas, the main component in natural gas, which is used to generate electricity and heats homes around the world. You know what that is? How about we do like Mad Max?
Call it underworld. But by the time he gets his energy.
What, oil, natural gas?
Pigs.
You mean pigs like that?
That's right.
Bullshit.
Big shit.
Big shit. The lights, motors, the vehicles, all run by a high-powered gas called methane. Methane comes from pig shit.
You know, so they knew about this whenever they made, what was this, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I remember this. Whenever I watched it back in the day, I can't remember the last time I've seen it. It's been years, but I remember it. That's why I knew to pull it up right now. Like you're telling me that, you know, all this methane, it's like, can we take it whenever the cows pass gas? Well, I don't know. Maybe, who knows? It's just literally a lack of imagination and technology. But you're telling me that it comes from their innards. A lot of it comes from their bowel movement. We can't do anything with it? Nothing? How about whenever the cattle's not grazing, could we put them in maybe some kind of structure that could help capture this stuff, and then we could use it for something? I mean, it's literally just a different type of recycling. So here's an example of recycling.
Some of the brightest, biggest ideas in history have come from our small businesses.
That line. Some of our biggest, brightest ideas come from small businesses. You know what? That's where nearly all of them come from.
My father started the company in 1959. He did everything from drive a taxi cab around.
1959 is how long this has been going on. And this is taking streets that are already there, that are made out of asphalt, and recycling them.
The city of Cleveland to drive a truck hauling aggregate from the quarries. One year he was doing a parking lot for a shopping center, and it was the last day of the season. The asphalt plant was closing. Snowflakes were flying. He ran out of material. He grabbed a handful of torches that they had lying.
Economically, you save money, and you go green.
So this is what they do. It's a big kind of convoy line. They do it all in one day.
At the same time. It's brilliant. This process does it all in one shot.
I love it. Our road's getting fixed.
That's one that will really impact the environment.
So why not take those funds that have already been put into that road?
It made a dramatic difference to the street.
And I think the quality is just excellent.
We have our employees doing the work.
Gives that municipality the opportunity to create jobs.
It cannot be a failure. It will only be a success.
Let's beautify the neighborhood.
They recycle 100% of the asphalt. I think they have to bring in a little bit extra. But everything that's there stays there. They don't rip it up. They don't get rid of it. They don't put on like a thin little layer on top. It's a completely new road, street. Our patented system processes 100% of the asphalt on the street, avenue, or highway, leaving a like new roadway in just one pass. Like, that's it, man. This is it. This is what they do. It gets heated up, so it becomes malleable. They have these big white canisters, probably propane. Yeah, it says propane on it. Heat it up. They tear it up. They recycle it right there on the spot. You know, they're taking it down to the dirt right there. You can see the dirt right there. And then they start laying down new. Whenever it gets all heated up, ground up, they just slap it right back down. And there it is, coming out there at the end, all new, all done in one day, right there on the spot, fraction of the cost, 100% recyclable. But no, people want to complain to the government. They want to go to them. Who did this? It wasn't the government. This guy back in 1959 did this. Did they do this where you're from? It's been around since 1959. I haven't seen them do this here. You know why? Because there's red tape. And who creates that red tape? The government. So here it is. They're talking about sewage pipes. That sewage creates corrosion even quicker.
Penalties between 2005 and 2008.
And it's like, this is so stupid. He just gets through saying, he says here that they have penalties if they don't fix these problems. It's like, what is that supposed to do? It's like, get rid of the red tape. Make it so that these people can come in and do this.
It becomes much more subject to leaks and structural breakdown, which is sewer pipe collapsing.
Collapsed sewer pipes mean spills, and spills mean fines from the Environmental Protection Agency. Detroit, Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. have seen their fair share. But the worst offender is San Diego, with $6.2 million in EPA penalties between two.
$6.2 million in penalties. Which politicians are getting this money? Well, where does it go? A big chunk of it is going to go directly back into that agency, more than likely. And so the directors and the chairheads and whoever, they're all probably making big bank. And then that way, whenever these politicians are getting elected into office, such as the president, and he's appointing people, it's like, well, would you like a high-paying job? Well, here's one right here. They don't do anything. You just go around and you virtue signal because we don't have any solutions for this stuff. That doesn't mean that there aren't solutions.
2005 and 2008.
Some of these structures are from the early part of the last century, and they're wearing out.
Here in the city of St. Louis, we have the fourth largest sewer system in the United States, parts of which date back to the 1850s, or even when Abraham Lincoln was president. We have wooden sewers actually downtown.
They have wooden sewers still in downtown. Around the time Abraham Lincoln was president. What the hell kind of trash is that?
The sewers are amongst the first sewers that were built in the 1850s. But it's the infrastructure that we have today.
The $1 trillion price tag on our aging water and sewer systems may be reduced by inventive new technologies, like those used to overhaul St. Louis.
Invented new technologies. Go figure. You know who didn't invent this? The government. What was it? Another small business.
Is 10,000 miles of underground pipe. To save time and money, the city is rebuilding its sewers from the inside out.
The conventional way would be to come out here with a backhoe and dig up the street, put in a new pipe, but that's very expensive, very time consuming. In lieu of that, we have cured-in-place pipe. What that is we're working with polyester resin. That's the same thing that bolts are made out of. What we're essentially doing is we're using the old pipe as a form, and we're building a new pipe inside that without digging up the street. We're going to have this done in one day.
Trenchless repair systems, developed by in situ form technologies, are rapidly overtaking traditional dig and replace methods of pipe restoration. It starts with an inspection by an
And they go in there and they look at it and they find raccoons and alligators in there.
You got 2 parts.
Where does it show their buddies at?
I'd actually have to go into more.
There's a raccoon.
Great at tight places or unexpected visitors.
An
Every
alligator.
now and then you get to see some crazy.
And they go in there. And what it is that it's kind of like an epoxy. There it goes. I paused for a moment there. So it's like an epoxy where it's malleable and then you add a second compound to it and it hardens.
We raise the temperature, in this case to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to exotherm. In other words, it's going to go from liquid to solid. It's a chemical reaction. It's kind of like when people buy an epoxy at the store and you got 2 parts and you mix them together. There's heat generated there, and that goes from liquid to solid. The pipe's going to be solid, just like this pipe in my hand. This is an 8-inch. Here's the felt. This has a resin in it. It's all in the pipe. And then when we finish, it'll be a structural pipe.
Did you catch that in the text?
In other words, it's going to go from liquid to solid, just like this pipe in my hand. This is an 8-inch.
Right there. The pipe will last up to 100 years. Well, in 100 years from now, I wonder what kind of new technology that they'll have where they'll be able to deal with this. Maybe instead of having this little robot that they send in there that has a little camera that sees the little raccoon and stuff and does the drilling, maybe in 100 years, there'll be a robot that can go in there, can scrape away that epoxy layer and put in a new one right then and there on the spot, cleaning and flushing stuff out as it goes. Because we have all these crazy robotic innovations coming about right now. So in 100 years, what's that going to look like? But no. Instead, we have these fringe lunatics like AOC who says, well, we just need to stop the cows from farting. There's too much. It's like, no. You have solved nothing. You've gotten up there and you've cried like a child throwing a temper tantrum. You have done nothing that a 5th grader can't do. You know, sometimes I see these videos of some of these people who are dancing and they're like, oh, it's so brave and it's so daring. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not brave. It's not daring. It's not skilled. It's nothing. Whenever I see someone who's dancing and it's like, little kids could dance like that if they wanted to. Because it's nothing special. You know you're dealing with something special whenever you just can't take normal people or kids and that they can just go and do it. So it's like a ballerina. There's a great example. And so you can't do what ballerinas do. Standing up on your toe like that, coming out parallel with your leg, and just being straight. Ballerinas are tone. They're strong because they're having to force their muscles and to force their bodies to do these things. And it's just, it takes years of practice. They're all built like crazy. There are no fat chicks that are ballerinas. Oh, what's that one? Oh, what's that one? Yeah, I'm sure many of you have heard this song, Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. And there she is dancing with all these ballerinas. It's like, look at how they have their legs up and their arms out. Jumping up high. You see that chick there? She's got muscles all over the place. It's something that it takes years of practice and being in physical shape. What Taylor Swift is doing, though, is nonsense. Any of us can do what Taylor's doing. But what these ballerinas are doing in the background is like, nope. And these idiots here, they're not dancing. They're just doing nonsense. A lot of the stuff that they're doing, it's like I can get... That guy's dancing there. He's doing... And it's, you know, some of it's cool though. I mean, there is that one too. I like these two guys here. Or four, I guess there's four of them. That was really cool. That little thing he does with his arms. It's not anything really talented, but I don't know if there's a name for that, but that was pretty neat to see. Yeah, politicians. They're not held accountable. Do you have this going on where you live? Where they can come in and they can fix the piping in a day. They just go in, they take a look to make sure that everything's all right with that little robot that goes in there, kind of cleans stuff up, and then they have it set for 100 years. I had a friend who worked for the city water, retired from there. They didn't do this. You know what they did? Exactly what they talked about. Going in there, ripping up the streets, replacing the pipe, putting a clamp on if there was a leak right there, or replacing the whole sections of pipe, whatever it is that they needed to do. Cost a hell of a lot more. Took a hell of a lot longer. Why isn't this being done all over the place? That means less money for politicians. Because they get to say, oh, well, we have this huge infrastructure problem. It's going to cost these millions and billions of dollars. We need to raise taxes. Then we're going to have some of these contractors are going to come and help with it. And these contractors, they're my friends, family members, people who donated to me. They scratched my back, so now I'm going to scratch theirs. You know how we know that's true? Because if politicians really had to do a good job, then there's no reason why this shouldn't be the staple way of fixing things all across the country. There's no argument at all, no good justified argument for going in and jackhammering all this stuff up when you have something like this. There's no reason to go in there and to jackhammer up roads and to close down entire sections, huge sections of streets and highways, and it's going to take a month. I mean, we have highways that run through my city, and it's like all year round, there's some section of highway somewhere this is going on, minus this way, where they come in, they tear it all to pieces, they get rid of it, and they completely repave it. It's not this. This takes a fraction of the time, costs a fraction of the money, 100% recyclable, but yet they want to do it the most inefficient way possible. Because there's nothing there in place for the politicians to do their job. Because they don't care. They lie. They lie constantly. It makes me wonder how much more is out there that's like these examples. How many more politicians do we have to deal with like AOC, who wants to say, well, we need to build railroads, electric bullet trains from the U.S. to Hawaii so we stop flights, stop farting cows. It's like, you're ridiculous. She's lying. Doesn't matter if she knows it or not. She's lying. And it's because we let them get away with it. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a site where I'm going to deal with all this. I know how. It's a check and balance system. It's going to be really big and massive. Our taxes keep going up because we're not funding good stuff like this. We do ridiculous stuff. And with stuff like what's happening with 19 that they all claim is a big global thing, it's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's all lies. I see so much stuff all the time about that crap. And in the meantime, they've created super spreader events, which they're not. But according to their terminology, those should be counted as super spreader events because they've attacked small businesses, they've closed them down, they said they're non-essential, and now you have to go to big places like Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or Target or whatever. I mean, fortunately not here in Texas. Texas kind of gave them the big finger with all that stuff, and Greg Abbott has said no, but it's like, you know what, whenever they're down there and federal agents are at the border and they're putting illegal immigrants on planes and buses and bringing them into the country, human trafficking is illegal. Where are the Republicans arresting these people? I'm not a fan of any of them. So if you too are not a fan of just having your money fill the pockets of these politicians, getting screwed over in every shape, fashion, and form, then help me out. Let's do something about this. Start right now with the first step. And just real simple, give the video a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe and become a member. That's all I need for right now. That's it. And as I do more, there'll be more. There'll be more expected from me and more expected from the members, but one step at a time. So, thanks for watching. We'll catch you again later. Bye.